Saskatchewan is the latest province to declare a state of emergency as quick-moving wildfires have forced thousands of people in that province, as well as Manitoba and Alberta, out of their homes and their communities. Firefighters are now using the resources they do have to slow the fires. But is it enough? For years, the Canadian Association of Canadian Fire Chiefs has been calling for a national fire administration. Paul Boissonneault is here to talk about that again. He's a board member with the association and the fire chief in Oakville. Paul, welcome back.
Good morning, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you. So first off, how do you see the wildfire situation in the country right now?
Well, first and foremost, I want to provide, on behalf of the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs, our thoughts and prayers with the evacuees from Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and certainly our regrets and condolences to those to the deceased in Manitoba, and certainly for those affected by firefighter injuries. We know of one at least significant injury in Manitoba. And I also want to send support to all of my colleagues on the front line. Mm-hmm. The situation across our country right now is, we watch mapping daily from the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre, and there's a mapping that shows that there's over 93 wildfires that are currently out of control across our country, and essentially every province is affected by fires that are out of control right now. Thus far this year, we've had over 1,600 year-to-date fires and over 1.4 million hectares of area burned. And the challenge that we're always facing now is that we're not talking about solely remote areas. We're talking about areas that wildland-urban interface are affected, and that's where you're now talking about provincial wildfire agencies and the intersection of local fire departments and deployed fire departments, because we're talking about communities and now structural firefighting where provincial agencies are not equipped to, combat structural firefighting entities. And that's where that intersection of where information, policy, and expertise is necessary at the federal level, and where a national fire administration would provide that essential coordination.
Okay, so then, Paul, your colleagues on the front lines fighting these fires, are they anywhere close to having what they need?
Well, it's not as much, needing more resources in many cases. It's about the appropriate allocation of resources. So ensuring that you get the right resources at the right location at the right time, and ensure that you're getting the policy that supports those things. The preparedness piece is that we're now chasing our tail yet again. We've talked about the need for a national fire administration and how that would prepare for the response aspect, but where policy could affect the easier transfer of resources, not only across our country, but where you need to bring in international resources. And it's not just about getting more people on the front line. There's still a necessity for the coordination of those pieces. And we're not only talking about just the firefighting aspect, but now we've got multiple agencies that also need assistance when we're talking about, humane societies, food banks, industry. All of those pieces, when they come at a collaborated piece right at the front line, it's very, very hard for an incident command to be able to allocate those resources appropriately right at the scene. There's a better way of doing business, and we know that it's from the National Fire Administration. We have a solution that can be put in place before the G7 meetings, and we are the only country, to be very clear, that will be attending the G7 meetings that do not have a National Fire Administration, and we're long overdue. Canada deserves better.
And our country catches on fire every single summer. Paul, you and I have this conversation at least twice a year, probably more often. Why don't we have a National Fire Administration?
I can't speak on behalf of government specifically. We're hopeful that with a new administration and new ministers associated with the portfolios that we're talking about, we're hopeful that we can get our necessity points across. It's not about creating the perfect model. It's about getting a model in place and ensuring that we follow the lessons learned from other countries that already have this in place. I can't speak to why it hasn't happened yet, but we keep talking about unprecedented wildfires. We talked about it in 23, 24, and we warned of a serious situation for 2025. And here we are yet again, just at the start of June, with already over 1,600 wildfires to date across our country, and every province is affected. So the ability to help our neighbors, the ability to send resources next door when there are fires happening in each individual province is where that coordination of resources really does have to be vetted appropriately at the federal level. And that's where that National Fire Administration will absolutely help.
Any signs that you're making progress here, Paul?
Well, with the new government in place, we're really hopeful. We have had, even prior to the election, we certainly sent our information and had meetings with all parties. Again, the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs is pragmatic. We're not political. You know, respectfully, wildfires don't really care who's in power in Ottawa, but, you know, Ottawa hopefully cares about the wildfires. So we are willing to work with the government. We want to get this in place. We want to do better. We want to support our colleagues on the front lines and, more importantly, ensure that the safety of Canadians is at the utmost forefront. And, you know, we owe that to our firefighters across this country. We got 126,000 firefighters, 90,000 are volunteer. Our association just signed an agreement with the Canadian Volunteer Association just weeks ago, and we're also working with Humane Society. We're doing the work in the absence of a National Fire Administration, but with that additional support, we can do much better.
Paul, we're having this conversation on June 2nd. What does the severity of the fires this early tell you about the season, the summer we could have?
Well, unfortunately, I'd love to be able to predict what the weather is going to do, but I can't do that. What I can tell you is we are at a national preparedness level, state 5, at this point. And traditionally, that would mean that the rest of the summer could be more challenging than we're facing right now. I'm hopeful that is not the case, but again, hope doesn't get the right resources to the right place at the right time. So we need to implore something immediately. We have the turnkey solution available to get the National Fire Administration in place to be able to give assistance to the policymakers in Ottawa, as well as those on the front line that are fighting these fires. And, you know, we're talking about volunteers who are deployed from their communities to fight wildland-urban interface, maybe even outside of their communities. They still have a job to take care of. They still have their own community to take care of. And we owe it to them to ensure that we have the right people in place to get that happening.
Okay, Paul, always appreciate the time.
Thanks so much, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Yep, anytime. That's Paul Boissonneault, a board member with the Association of Fire Chiefs.